All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to our live. We got lots of people here. Comment wherever you are, where you're here from. I'm here from Miami and excited to be here with you all. Thank you for taking the time to join in on an important conversation. And we did have some difficulties for Instagram. So if you got anyone that was joining on Instagram, tell them to come on over to LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook. We're here. But I'm excited because I have the privilege today of introducing the CEO of Finseca, Marc Cadin, who's here with us. And Marc is a visionary and spokesman for financial professionals who provide financial security to over 90 million American families. And Finseca was inspired by financial security for all. And it brings together consumers, policymakers, financial security professionals, carriers, so that together we could build a secure financial future for individuals, families, and the business owners that we serve. So, Marc, want to thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Fradel, so excited for this conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and with your over 25 years of experience advocating for the financial industry, and you've been the voice of our profession, really, with millions of Americans that we serve, and speaking in front of the U.S. House Committee on Financial Services. I know you've taken the fight for the American people to Congress, where you testified and shared with our policymakers how this DOL's fiduciary-only proposal would really cripple the financial security of millions of Americans. And I know recently you've been flying all over the country, speaking to agents, agencies, leaders in the financial industry. And it's really to bring light to some of what's going on with the proposed DOL rule and what that means for our industry, but also for the millions of Americans that are planning for their financial future. So today I want to highlight some of those things for everyone that's tuning in with us. Including a different audience that maybe you haven't addressed in the previous talks, which is our consumer, our client, and really anyone that wants to get financial advice and get help with implementing that advice for their financial future. So before we get to the proposed DOL ruling and the effect that it can have, can you walk us through why is it important to have holistic financial planning and maybe some of the misconceptions and media biases that are out there that might cause confusion around this?
Well, I think it's a really important question. I'm so delighted that we have kind of a diverse audience. I see a bunch of comments and we got people logging in from all over the country. So it's great to take this message, not just to the profession that I serve, but consumers and clients out there and ordinary Americans who are looking to have a financially secure future. And, really at the foundation in terms of how does somebody become financially secure? I think that's at the core of your question, Fradel. And, we think about a holistic financial plan that can guarantee outcomes no matter what happens. And what Ernst & Young, they found when they did a study and they tested a whole bunch of different scenarios, over 1,000 different scenarios. And they came out with this study that basically said that consumers that have permanent life insurance, they have some savings through an investment, a 401k or some kind of savings, and they have an annuity. Consumers that have all three, they get better outcomes. And that's really what we're all about. It's all about the people and the products and the strategies that are going to help more Americans have a more financially secure future. So that's what Finseca is all about.
That's really interesting that you mentioned. You mentioned permanent life insurance, some other retirement savings, and an annuity. Can you say versus what? Like, I know obviously if someone has nothing, that's not even in the mix, but versus what?
Yeah. So if somebody just says, well, I got a 401k, right? And they say, I'm just going to put all of my any saved dollar, I'm just going to put it all into a 401k, or they just buy life insurance, right? Maybe they got, a family and they got a business, or they're a key employee and they just want to have life insurance. So if you take any one of those strategies, you have life insurance, you got investments, and you have an annuity. Any one of those strategies is not as good as all three of them combined. And it really comes down to, in the financial advice world, it's all about kind of a diversified portfolio. You want to have, if you have a 100% of your savings, you want to have them in different buckets that give you different strengths. So if I have all of my money in a 401k and and let's say I invest it, and then when I go to take it out, what happens is it better be an up market, because if I start taking out money in retirement from my 401k and the market's down, then it's going to reduce the amount of time that I'll be able to use that savings. But if I have a permanent life insurance, which has a savings component, in addition to a protection component, permanent life insurance, the beauty of it is that there is a savings component. If I have an annuity that offers me a guaranteed lifetime income, no matter what's happening with the stock market, that's going to be guaranteed. So these three products and strategies work in a really complementary fashion, and those are the basis of what we consider a holistic financial plan.
Yeah, I love that. That's very insightful, because a lot of times people think about diversification as different asset classes, not necessarily different product types, and that brings a new light to that. So excellent. So now let's talk about, in very simple layman's terms, what's going on in the industry, as it relates to the DOL ruling. And as much as it has an impact on our industry, of course, but it also has an impact on our clients, right? Those that are benefiting from the great things that we do for our consumers. So can you give us some insight onto that?
Yeah. So what the whole debate is about for us, and I think for consumers, it's all about access to advice. That's what it comes down to. How are you going to get the advice you need in order to develop a financial plan that makes you financially secure in the future? It's all about access to advice. And if you start from the outcome, a holistic financial plan is objectively better for consumers. It's been proven by Ernst & Young. Then you have to say, okay, well, how do I get that advice? Well, you work with an advisor that provides holistic financial advice. And what the Department of Labor is really doing is they are restricting access to advice and pushing what we refer to as a fee-only model. So the Department of Labor, and they've tried this now a couple of different times. The last time they put forward their rule in 2016, 10 million Americans lost access to financial advice. 10 million Americans got a notice that said, hey, the size of your account in your 401k is too small, so we can no longer, because of the regulatory burden, we can no longer serve you. So that's really what this debate at the Department of Labor, it's all about, the department believes in a fee-only world. And, we were, Fradel, as you know, I had a chance to, when I testified before Congress that morning, I actually went on CNB Squawk Box. Maybe we'll put the Squawk Box interview in the comments, so if people want to look at it, they can. And they asked me, why is this so bad? I said, well, 10 million Americans losing access to financial advice is not the direction this country needs to go. And they asked, why does that occur? Like, why would this regulation reduce access? And basically the way it is if you're a fee-only advisor, almost all of them, almost the vast majority of investment advisors have minimums. So you have to have $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 of minimum of investable assets that you can give them, and then they'll invest it in stocks and bonds and that kind of diversification. But if you don't have that, then how are you going to access the financial advice? And how are you going to access the products like permanent life insurance or annuities that EY says is in your best interest and you will produce better outcomes? So that's really what this debate is all about, access to advice and products that Americans need to be financially secure.
Wow, interesting. So does it differ at all to the previous DOL proposals?
Not really. I mean, they have a few different wrinkles, but the reality, the last time they put forward this rule, it was actually vacated by the Fifth Circuit court. So the Fifth Circuit looked at what is the DOL, what do they have the authority to do? And then what did the Department of Labor actually do? And the Fifth Circuit court said, Department of Labor, you don't have the authority to do this. So they vacated the 2016 rule in 2017. They vacated the rule. So the department took some of the headlines from that rule, and what they did is they just decided that they were going to use those headlines. But unfortunately, when you read the substance, it's basically some version of the same. So we don't think the department has the authority to do this. The last time they did it, 10 million Americans lost access to financial advice. They use really incendiary language like commissions are junk fees and state regulation is inadequate, which we find to be offensive and inaccurate. You know, the commission-based advice model is how insurance products are distributed, and there's nothing wrong with it. And commissions, a lot of times, are way more efficient for clients than just paying an annual fee on a regular basis. So this rule is not good. We believe, and as I told Congress when we were testifying before, when I testified, I guess it was in January, mid-January, we went before Congress. He said, this is an ideological crusade by an administrative department that doesn't have the authority to do it, that is being offensive, and it's going to hurt the financial security of American people. So we got to rally against this because it's not effective.
So, I mean, any thoughts on why, or maybe you know the answer, why do they think fees are better than commissions? Because ultimately it's just a way of getting paid for a service, right? Just like you would in real estate or when you purchase something. So why is it this whole stigma? Fees are okay, but commissions are junk fees?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of an ideological view to justify a result. I think in the end, that's what it is. There are a handful of bureaucrats at the Department of Labor who just simply don't believe that you, Fradel, can serve the best interest of consumers if you receive a commission. They just don't believe you can do that. And they don't have the real world experience about the challenges. It's difficult. Like your job and trying to help work with advisors, the advisor's job to help work with clients. It's a hard job. And the way that you make it in this profession is by doing a really, really, really good job for your clients. And you do a good job for your clients, then what happens is they're satisfied and they will be your strongest source of referrals. I mean, you've been in the profession a long time, so you know that the people in the Department of Labor, they just can't believe that. There are other groups like the AARP, as an example, who have kind of a direct-to-consumer model. So they want to cut out the advisor altogether and just go direct to consumer, which is, again, that's fine, but they're not subject to the same regulatory requirements in many instances that an advisor is. And the theory is, well, if I'm just showing up on a website and picking what it is, then they can't cause me harm. So there's an ideological perspective that I think is just fundamentally misses the reality on the ground. But it's going to have a huge and negative implication for, as I said, millions of Americans will lose access to advice if this rule goes through.
Wow. That's so impactful. So how did we get here? I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Did financial professionals or insurance agents get a bad rap in the first place to cause this, or what's the catalyst to all this?
I think in the end, this is a 13-year crusade to ban commissions. And, the Department of Labor put the first proposal out, which actually banned commissions in 2010. They came out another one in 2015. They did some tinkering in 2020. Now they're back at 2023. So every time they get an opportunity, they try to restrict access to advice. And, there's a mindset and a worldview. And let me just give you an example of sort of where this has been tried. So in the UK in 2011, from 2011 to 2012, they banned commissions. And what happened from 2011 to 2012, a 23% reduction in the advisor population occurred. 23% of advisors stopped being in the profession. And again, if you go back to the beginning and say, what's the problem with a fee-only model? Well, you have to have that minimum amount of investable assets. So you have to have 100, 200, 300, $500,000. You know, the groups that go on TV and advertise, we're different, we're fiduciaries. That's just a catchphrase. The first question I would ask anybody who says we're different, we're fiduciaries, is what's your minimum amount of investable assets? What's your minimum? Because almost every time, including the ones that do a lot of, I think, offensive TV commercials, they have, you know, those minimums are $500,000 in many instances. So, you know, what they found in the UK when they banned commissions is that advisors got out of the profession. And now what they found is that there's an advice gap. The people at the top end of the economic and wealth spectrum, they're going to get plenty of advice. There's no question about it. It's the people who don't meet those investment minimums. Those are the people that are going to get hurt the worst. So I just don't think the Department of Labor has a real clear sense of what actually happens on the ground. And like a lot of times, like regulators, a lot of times they're like scientists with their beakers and they're trying to figure out how to, you know, controlled environments, that they don't have any perspective about what's the practical implication of what's going to happen in the real world. They're just on an ideological crusade.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine, because we're already at a deficit when it comes to the number of advisors. And even if you look at the average age of an advisor, it's over the age of 55 and typically a white male, right? So from the ethnic diversification that we need to age to everything, I mean, it would be crazy to think about if it got even lower than that. And like you mentioned, the market, right? Which market it's serving.
We have to grow this profession. I think there's about 500,000 advisors in various forms that are helping clients with their protection needs, with their holistic financial plans. About 500,000 in various models. But we live in a country of 340 million people. So 340 million people, and you know, the financial advice is, you just think about your life, my life, anyone's life. You know, what happens? You have kids, you get married, you buy a house, you got college, you got all these complexities, and getting somebody who gives you guidance to help you figure that out, who's trusted, that's so important. We've got to grow this profession. And we have to, as you pointed out, Fradel, we got to diversify. We got to help bring more women, more people of color, so we can take this message of holistic financial planning and this notion of financial security into every community in this country.
Absolutely. And that's really what we're focused on at the World Changers, you know, to be able to change people's finances and change the world in that way. But what are your thoughts? How can we do that? I mean, from the leadership of insurance companies to agencies, but also way down to the agents who sit face to face with the clients. Is there a way we can change that perception, or something that we can do about it?
Yeah, well, that's why we created Finseca. I mean, there were a bunch of organizations that represented segments of the financial advice profession. You know, there were, you know, a bunch of different groups. And if you think about professions, and you think about doctors, lawyers, nurses, accountants, dentists, you know, if you think about learned professions, there's usually a group that serves that profession. You know, if you're a nurse, you're a member of the American Nurses Association. You know, the list goes on and on. But in our profession, we had a bunch of smaller groups. And so we created Finseca, and we merged a bunch of these nonprofits together. And instead of picking a name around who the people we represented are, we picked a name about what those people do for their clients and what our overall mission was. And similar to your name, you want to change the world. Our name, Finseca, is inspired by this notion of financial security for all. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do is if we can get all 500,000 participants, members of this profession, to join Finseca And we can have some of them participate in meetings like our Advanced Markets Conference, which is coming up in Washington, D.C. Which part of that conference, we go to the Hill, we talk about the issues, whether it's tax issues or regulatory issues. If we can work more effectively together, regardless of what your model within the profession is, and we bring everybody together, there's nothing we can't do. So I think that's how we change the brand and reputation of this profession. That's how we advocate for more effective public policy that increases access to advice, increases the financial security of the American people. The only way we do that is we bring everybody together and everybody participates at least at some level.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. We have some people listening in that are not in the industry. I mean, maybe after this, they might want to be in the industry, but, why should anyone else care about this? Obviously, we're in an election year. There's a lot of political talk. Why should anyone who's not in the industry, which they are a potential consumer, right? Someone who's looking at their own finances, why should they care about this?
Well, look, I think we have to, I think one of the things that makes this country great is that there is a all for one and one for all mentality. I think that, if you're a consumer that doesn't have a holistic financial plan that includes permanent life insurance, savings, and investments, then you care because I hope that that you need to find an advisor who can help you with that. I know Fradel would be happy to help any consumer out there with their financial planning needs that can help put them on a more secure footing. And we have to preserve access to it. And if you do have a holistic financial plan, then look, we all have to care about, policies that are going to take this country in the wrong direction. I'm going to geek out here for a second, but we have a 33 plus $1 trillion national debt. Social Security and Medicare go insolvent in the beginning of the next decade. If nothing is done about Social Security, that will mean a 25% across the board pay cut for existing retirees, people like my mother who lives on her Social Security check every month. And I just think that that's just not the country we're going to live in. We have to deal with entitlements, and we need to encourage more Americans to get the products they need to become more financially secure. I mean, I can go on and on about the challenges and the stats, but the key is, I think it's in everybody's interest that everyone within this country should be able to access the advice and products they need to become financially secure. And that's something I think as Americans, we all need to care about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so imagine if I'm one of those people, right? So I think that that's true. I want to start planning for my financial future. And I see some of those ads on TV that you mentioned, right? Look at us. We're different. We're fee only. And I really don't know what that means. I also maybe Google and get a list of questions saying, make sure you ask your financial advisor these things. And are you a fiduciary? What are the fees? All these type of questions. Do you have any advice on what are some good questions that can actually get to the heart of who you're dealing with, which in my opinion is to find someone that is trustworthy, hardworking, and is going to do the best thing for you? Any suggestions on what questions to ask of that advisor?
Just as an aside, Fradel, people talk about, are you a fiduciary? I hear that all the time. Bernie Madoff was a fiduciary, by the way, and he stole his clients blind. So the idea that there are magic words that are going to get you the outcomes that you want, I think, again, it just shows, most Americans, like they a bunch of these words. But here's the reality with anyone who is looking for financial advice and an advisor to help them. First, if the advisor isn't doing a really good job with fact finding, do you have a family? Do you love that family? What's going on with the kids? What's your financial situation? What are your goals and ambition? Any financial plan has to start with a solid fact finding perspective, because we're all humans. We're all flawed. We all want different things. So the financial plan really should be a reflection of my goals and ambitions. And sometimes you're not sure, like, what should I do? The financial advisor should help clarify what those objectives are. I think when you go next to that, you got to have a mix. You got to have a mix of protection and opportunity. So you can't just put all of your money into one basket because I'm going to save a bunch of money here and it's going to grow. And you do have to mitigate risks. What happens if the death of a breadwinner? What happens if you have a key employee and they either leave or die? Like what are the practical implications of the risks that we all face? So those would be my two main points. I would say, does the advisor do a really good job of understanding your unique situation? Do they help you understand what are the goals? What are the planning process? What are the objectives that you want? And then do they help you manage risk and look for opportunities? And I think if somebody does all three of those, this notion of, are you a fiduciary? Again, like Bernie Madoff was a fiduciary, so that didn't help his clients at all because he robbed them blind. I think getting to the outcomes you want is really where you want to focus.
Absolutely. Those are really good points. I would add to that is, what's your process of understanding someone's financial situation? I know that this is more of a tip for the agents that are listening and for financial professionals in the industry, but it's being client centric, right? Putting the needs of the client first before your own. And if you look at the definition of a fiduciary, that's what they're supposed to be doing too. But you don't have to have that label, as you mentioned, to actually do the work that of putting your client first. So I love that. So, I think those are some really good tips for anyone listening of how to take this and put it into effect. I know we did talk about some doom and gloom today, but politics tends to bring some of that. But what do you see for the future in a positive light? If we made some of these changes and really did get the word out and get an understanding, and people, whether they're in the industry or not, really wrap their head around this. What do you see for the future?
I am really optimistic about the future. I think we have some challenges with the debt and deficit. I think we got some challenges we talked about with the Department of Labor, but as we know that, and I think about the line from Winston Churchill is one of my favorites. America will get it right, but only after we've exhausted every possible alternative. And I think many ways, sometimes the political environment, some of the unique pressures. But, I believe that, the arc of justice bends in the right direction. And, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that holistic financial plans are objectively better for consumers. We know that there is an army of people out there who care about their clients, who want to serve more people. I think the advancements in technology. Now, I'm not a robo-advice fan. I don't believe that, AI or these kinds of things are going to help the human condition manage our emotions and help us think with clarity about our financial futures and develop the plans to help make those futures a reality. But I think the advancements of technology will make individuals more productive and will help us access more communities. I think the diversification of this profession. So overall, I am bullish. I think this looming insolvency of Social Security is going to force us as a country to have a real conversation about private sector solutions. We didn't really have a conversation as a country when we shifted from a defined benefit funded retirement to a defined contribution, where the most significant risk shift in maybe human history onto retirees occurred, and nobody really knew what was happening. I think that's not going to be the conversation this time around. So I think these things, the more we engage people, the more we shine a light on it, the more the truth comes to the forefront. And I think the ability for us to positively impact the future goes up and up and up and up. So I'm incredibly optimistic about where we're headed. And I'm grateful for people like you, Fradel, who are helping us shine a spotlight on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we concur with those thoughts. That's why we created the World Changers, right? So we have a very definite belief that technology just amplifies what the human can do. And as a fintech company, that's exactly what we're doing, because our agents are out there doing the right thing for the client, but being empowered by technology. So, but any last thoughts? Anything else you want to add before we wrap up here? I thought this was a very insightful conversation. I'm so glad we got to do it. Any last words?
Well, I'm grateful for everyone who listened, either live or on the replay. Willingness to engage, and I would just encourage, this is our country. These are our opportunities. If you are a citizen, we'll put it in the chat. If you're just somebody who's interested in kind of financial advice and what's happening, and what the discussion around the Department of Labor has motivated you, I just encourage you to click on the action link and take action. Let your member of Congress know that you don't think it's a good idea for the Department of Labor to put forward a rule that's going to reduce access for millions of Americans in terms of how they receive financial advice. If you're an advisor and you're thinking about, okay, what do I do? Then you have to join the cause. You have to join the Finseca movement, because we need you. We can't change the world if we do it in isolation. We have to come together under the Finseca banner. We have opportunities to come to DC. We have opportunities to engage. Spread the word. If you have a study group or a network you want us to come and help educate, we're happy to do it. So can't thank you enough, Fradel, for the opportunity today, and I appreciate the work that you do.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. And hey, everyone, you heard grassroots level is where it's at, right? That's how we can make movement. So go write something to your congressman, your senator. I think you have pre-formatted links that people can use, right, Mark, if I'm not mistaken?
That's right. Yep.
So literally, it's a click of a button. If you believe that anything we talked about today was important, the action step behind it is what's next for you. And of course, all the financial professionals, get involved, do the same thing, but also get involved with Finseca and the events around it. And we hope to have Mark's vision that he described of the positive, optimistic future come to light. And I know that it will. So appreciate everyone who was here today. Mark, thank you again. And hope everyone has a great day.